This will be our wrap-up show here at the Jon Krawczynski Show. This is our basketball show at talknorth.com. Thanks so much for listening. We're coming to you from the Aquarius Home Services studio.
That first sip of coffee. Is there anything better? Yup. Coffee made with amazing water from Aquarius, your authorized independent Connecticut dealer. Enjoy worry-free water throughout your home for less than buying that daily cup of joe. Imagine spotless dishes, softer laundry, and drinking water you can trust. Plus, up to 25% off a new Connecticut system. Schedule your free water analysis at AquariusHomeservices.com. Aquarius, earning the right to be recommended.
Join us after the Twins day game on Thursday, June 12th at Parlay Kitchen and Bar for the Talk North Sports Report live show presented by Giggly THC Drinks. Catch myself, Mark Rosen, Lavelle E. Neal III, Jon Krawczynski, and our special guest, five-time WNBA champion Rebecca Brunson. Reserve your VIP spot now at fanhq.com. Don't miss out. We also want to thank presenting sponsors, Giggly THC Beverages. Got mine right here. I'm not going to drink them during the show, but who knows about the rest of the day. Also, Lexus of Wayzata and Maplewood. Thanks to all of our sponsors. We'll get to all of them soon enough. Let's start here, John. I'm just going to give you the biggest picture question I possibly can. You can go any direction you want right now. What'd you make of the season? What'd you make of the end of the season? And how much tumult are we in for this summer?
Yeah, I mean, I think that by and large, to look at the season as anything other than a success, I think is disingenuous. I mean, you know, it's a team that made a huge trade right before the season started, and went through plenty of ups and downs and plenty of kind of adversity through the season, and yet still found a way to get back to the Western Conference Finals. And so I think from that standpoint, to see what these players did, what this coaching staff did, you know, what everyone did to kind of really sort of grind through a lot of difficulties and still make it back to the Western Conference Finals, I thought was an absolutely resounding success. I will say that the way that it ended in Game 5, with the dominance that the Thunder showed, with the lack of kind of any sort of requisite competitiveness from the Wolves in that game, it certainly does leave a sour taste in the mouth, you know, after such a rewarding season, for it to end with, you know, I've said it's like a 41 donut kind of level of embarrassment. That was a bummer, because I think that this team for most of the season showed a lot of resilience, a lot of resolve, a lot of toughness, and none of that was there in the very last time they took the court. So it was unfortunate they didn't get it back for Game 6, or at least like go down swinging. But I think when you look at the season as a whole, you have to walk away from it thinking, for this team to be in back-to-back conference finals, to get that playoff experience, I think it was a resounding success that way.
I have to agree. Let's jump right to the news of the summer. You know, during exit interviews, Connelly said he wants all of his guys back. My impression, reading between the lines, was that Julius Randle legitimately wants to be here, that Naz wants to get his big deal. Wouldn't mind if it was here, but he wants to get his big deal, and that it feels to me like Nickeil Alexander-Walker is probably out the door. What do you make of those three situations?
Yeah, I think that's the right way to look at it, Jim. I mean, we talked to Tim Connelly on Monday, and he did say that, you know, he would like to have all three of them back. But when you look at what the Wolves are going to try to do from a salary standpoint, I think that they would prefer to be below the second apron. And, you know, they would still pay a luxury tax in the first apron, but just not to the levels that it would be as part of the second apron. And you would have not quite as restrictive of movement in terms of other roster moves that you can make in the first apron versus the second. And so if that is the case, if they are going to operate with that assumption, I would think that the most likely scenario is that two of the three guys come back. And I do think that the most likely scenario is that Julius Randle and Naz Reid come back and that Nickeil Alexander-Walker leaves, because I think that Nikhil is a mid-level exception type player, $14 million type player. And he's made $4.5 million this year, is one of the great bargains in the league, but he's going to be looking for a lot of money. And I think also it's important to him that he has a big role with the team. Now, he certainly was a critical part of what the Timberwolves are doing, and did on the floor. And he had, he got good minutes. He had a real defined role, but I think that he's going to look around and see if there's maybe even an opportunity to be a starter, or at least a sixth man instead of a seventh or an eighth man. And in addition to the pay increase that will be available to him. And so it's not impossible that he returns, but I do think that he's the least likely to come back. On Julius Randle and Naz Reid, I do believe in Julius Randle's comments in his exit interview were telling, in terms of, I don't think he's looking to maximize finances in this next deal. He certainly wants to get paid and deserves to get paid, but I do think that being with a coach like Chris Finch that really believes in him the way that he does, and being in an area, I think that the family likes living here. I think that they enjoy what the team has done for them. I think Julius really likes playing with Anthony Edwards. And so whether that means that he would just opt in for one more year next year on his contract, or try to negotiate some sort of long-term, a little bit more security, but maybe a little less money per year on his salary. I think those are options that are on the table that will be explored. And Naz Reid is the really interesting one of the three, because he's younger. I think that he will, from what I understand, have several suitors out there that want to bring him in. The question will be, what is the price point that he commands? Because I think at the start of this last season, coming off of Sixth Man of the Year, maybe kind of envisioning a little bit bigger role after the Cat trade that didn't necessarily materialize. But I think that maybe you could have said Nas would have been looking for high 20s, $30 million a year. I think that was realistic. I think this season he had not as good a year as last year. Part of that was role. Part of that was kind of the way that the team struggled to come together. But I do think that the opportunity for him to make that gargantuan, like a 4-year 120 or something like that, may be a little out of reach. And so if, given the landscape of the rest of the league, there's not a ton of teams with big time cap room to throw a bunch of money at him. I think Detroit is one, Brooklyn is one. There's a couple others that are out there that have decent spending power, but it is possible that Nas will take a look at the financial landscape and not see like the bank breaking enormous deal. And then maybe still look at, hey, I have a good role here in Minnesota. I'm a cult hero here. I've got all sorts of endorsements and popularity here that would be hard to mimic somewhere else. And so I still think that there is a real chance that he does return on a contract that works for the Wolves and for him. But we'll see about that. I do think he's going to have sort of the most difficult decision. I think the Keels might be fairly easy. Julius's might be fairly easy, but I think Nas is going to be sort of torn between two options that have pluses and minuses. And so that one will be interesting to watch how it all shakes out.
He's Jon Krawczynski from The Athletic and TalkNorth.com. I'm Jim Suhan from the Star Tribune at TalkNorth.com. We appreciate you listening. Whenever you find a show you like, please subscribe to your favorite podcast app. We also have the Viking Update Show, Jeff Diamond Show, Russo, LaPanta, Dawn Mitchell, Randy Shaver's High School Football Show will be restarting here soon with John Millay on preps, Roy Smalley, Lavelle Neal, and myself on baseball. The list goes on and on. I can't even remember all the shows. Just go to talknorth.com. You'll find something you like in the sports, entertainment, and outdoors world, and we appreciate you listening. Right now, I want to let you know that I am drinking this stuff. This is my wife's favorite, the Giggly Iced Tea Lemonade, kind of the Arnie Palmer type. This is one of the 4 cocktails you get, the pineapple mojito. It's good stuff. I've had it the last 2 nights. Just helps me sleep, helps me relax. Also you can get the higher dosages and have a lot of fun. I just like having something that I can drink that's healthy. It's based on fruit juices and sparkling water. It tastes like a cocktail. No hangover, no regrets. Kind of mellows you out a little bit. And you can go different dosages. You can go the 5 milligrams or the 10 milligrams, depending on what you're looking for. For me, it's just relaxation, getting to sleep, and waking up feeling good. But you might have more fun with it than I do. Go to giggly.com and order. Go to any Quick Trip in Minnesota. Go to most liquor stores and grocery stores. You will find them. You can always order online. Use a promo code GigglyNorth for 50% off your first order. Now, John, tell us about Lexus of Wayzata and Maplewood.
That's right. Our good friend at Charlie Swanson has been one of the new additions to the Talk North family. And if you're in the market for a new luxury vehicle, look no further than Charlie Swanson at Lexus. Whether you're on the west or the east side of the Twin Cities, they've got you covered with 2 great locations, Lexus of Wayzata and Lexus of Maplewood. Check out the all-new Lexus TX, a spacious SUV with 3 rows of seating and plenty of room for all your gear. Head over to lexusofwayzata.com or lexusofmaplewood.com for details and to find your next ride today.
So let's get to the crazy stuff now. You have Giannis on the market. You have Durant, still subject of trade rumors. And let's face it, it's a league where Luka gets traded and Cat gets traded. I mean, anything could happen here. I've also seen some rumors out there about the potential of a Rudy Gobert trade that don't make sense to me. But I'll leave it to you. What crazy move? Let's anticipate what unanticipated move Tim Connelly might make.
Yeah, I mean, so first of all, just to get to the news of the situation, I thought that Tim Connelly's comments Monday about staying here were significant. He could be a free agent this summer with his contract situation. I asked him about it at his press conference availability on Monday, and he said that he loves it here. It feels like home here. And he said, the quote was, I think you guys are stuck with me. Now, is that a firm, absolute 100% commitment? No, it's not. But that's also the way that Tim Connelly talks. And I don't think he would have gone that far were he entertaining other possibilities. And so I'm sure that there's still some things to work through with contracts and all that stuff. But everyone is moving forward with the assumption that Tim Connelly is going to be the one making these decisions. And so when that happens, and knowing that is the case, it does make a beat writer brace for possible big changes. Just in his 3 years in that job, Tim Connelly has been as aggressive as any executive in the league in terms of making big trades. The Rudy Gobert trade, Nickeil Alexander and Mike Conley, certainly Julius Randle and Dante DiVincenzo trading up for Rob Dillingham on draft night last year. Like, this is a guy that, while I do believe he would sort of prefer to be more status quo, to have a little more continuity, he will not hesitate if he sees a deal that he thinks is going to make the team an improvement from either financial or competitive or both. So I do think there is a possibility that when the market really starts to establish itself, let's say in the next probably 10 to 15 days leading into the June 25th NBA draft, I would imagine that the Wolves are going to be active in discussions. We reported at The Athletic in February that they did have conversations and significant conversations with Phoenix about Kevin Durant. I would imagine that they will at least explore that idea again, because if you look at how the season ended, the way that it did, Julius Randle struggling in the Western Conference Finals, kind of a disappointing end to a really good season. I don't think that the Wolves made a big enough statement that if you just keep this group together, we'll be fine. I think there's a possibility that they do that. And I'm sure that they are absolutely entertaining that idea and just saying, hey, another year together with this group, they can improve and it'll be much smoother out of the gates next year, all of those things. But I do think that, there's also the possibility that Tim Connelly put it, until you're the last team standing, you need to be looking at things to change your roster to get you a better chance to be that team. And so, yes, I think Kevin Durant is someone that they will look at. I don't think Giannis Antetokounmpo is realistic. I just think that if he truly becomes available, there will be other teams that can just blow the Wolves out of the water with the packages that they can provide. But I think that there's a possibility, maybe they look at trying to acquire a point guard or just looking at other ways to not just tweak their roster, but to make significant changes to it. And I don't think that's the mandate for Tim Connelly. I don't think that's the only avenue that he is pursuing, but they have the 17th pick and the 31st pick in the draft. So there's some attractive assets there to use in trades. You could look at sign-in trades with Nickeil Alexander-Walker or Naz Reid or Julius Randle or any of these guys. You could look at all sorts of different outlets for making more than just marginal changes on the edges of the roster. And so I'm not guaranteeing that it will happen, but I do think that given Tim Connelly's history here, given where the Wolves are at, we certainly have to be prepared for that kind of a scenario to unfold.
Okay, let's get into what it would take to get somebody like Durant and whether they have the assets that would get the deal done. First, though, tell us about Princeton's Liquors.
Princeton's Liquors in Maple Grove. Bill Princeton, the Princeton family have been in the liquor selling business for decades and decades. If you go into Princeton's Liquors in Maple Grove, you will see everything that you could ask for: wine, spirits, beer related. Two of their expertises are bourbons and craft beer. Unbelievable selection of craft beer, from local products to products kind of around the region that you won't find in other places. And then bourbons, just, you talk about the highest of high-end bourbons. You talk about the kinds of bourbon that is going to, if you bring it into a party, to a graduation party, anything like that, you're going to turn some heads and impress some people. And then they also have some very affordable, very accessible brands as well. So go into Princeton's Liquors in Maple Grove. Tell them the Jon Krawczynski Show sent you, a local company, one that's been invested in this community for a long, long time. And we just love working with those people. So go to Princeton's Liquors in Maple Grove.
It'll be interesting when Naz Reid has his press conference and he says, the reason I stayed in Minnesota, how can I walk away from Steve Terry?
That's right. Those billboards, you can't pass those up.
He's not going to get that in any other city. Well, maybe he would, but not with Steve Terry, not with TSR. Anyway, it's been fun to work with TSR Injury Law all these years. They were one of our original sponsors. They helped us get us off the ground. And it's really cool to see their relationship with Naz Reid on the billboards and the commercials. It's fun to see our friend Steve Terry enjoying that aspect of the business. But the heart of the business is taking the fight to people who don't want to take care of you if you're ever injured. So just remember, if you are injured, call 612-TSR-TIME. They'll steer you in the right direction, or they'll take your case, and they won't charge you unless they win your case, and they win lots of cases. That's why they are such a big deal. TSR Injury Law, 612-TSR-TIME. Now want you to know more about Royal Credit Union.
Soak up sun, sand, and smart saving with a certificate at Royal Credit Union. Royal's 4.40% annual percentage yield 12-month certificate has guaranteed returns at maturity and no minimum opening balance for fast and easy opening. Open now at any Royal office or online at rcu.org/savesmart. Early withdrawal penalties could reduce earnings and principal. APY accurate as of 5/27/25. Insured by NCUA.
All right, so what would it take to get Kevin Durant, and would you think chasing Durant at this age would be the right move?
Well, I think that in February, when there were discussions with the Suns, it was a very complicated scenario for a couple of reasons. Number one, at the time, the Timberwolves were still not playing great. They were not in a very advantageous position from a bargaining standpoint, because at that point, it seemed like they really needed to do something to kind of breathe some life into the roster and change some things up. Now, only a little bit after that, you get Julius Randle back, you get Dante DiVincenzo back, and the team just started clicking and rolling. And so it was entirely different. But at the time, they were looking to see if there was a splash to be made. And so they had these conversations with the Suns. It was very complicated because also as a second apron team, their ability to aggregate salaries, their ability to kind of make trades is very restricted. And so there were going to be a lot of hoops that had to be jumped through, several teams involved and like players going all over the place. And ultimately, I think that the mechanics of making a move like that in season was just too difficult. And so they couldn't find a way forward to land Durant. Now you go into the summer and it's much more clear what the Suns are going to do. That the Phoenix could try to be cagey and say, no, we're not going to move him. We still believe in him. And they ultimately kept him for the stretch run there. Now everyone knows that Kevin Durant has to go. And so that will, I think, reduce the asking price for Durant. The one question that I have is the Wolves are still a second apron team. So there's still going to be some things that get in the way, even if, let's just say, for the sake of argument, that the Suns have really dropped their price, and they're saying, you know what, we will take Julius Randle, Rob Dillingham, and one of your picks. That seems like a decent return for Kevin Durant and something that the Wolves would at least have to think about. But they technically can't do that just one team to one team because of all these second apron rules. And so you'd have to get a bunch of other teams involved. It would still be complicated, but I don't think like whatever the Suns get back for Kevin Durant is going to be much, much lower because Durant was injured, because he's going to be 37 next year, because he's only got 1 year left on his deal, than they could have asked for at the February trading deadline. And so I do think teams like Houston, teams like maybe the Knicks, maybe some other teams will get involved and look at it. And so there could be some competition. But ultimately, if the Wolves could get Kevin Durant without having to give up core pieces, and no Wolves fans, I do not believe that Jaden McDaniels would be included in any kind of a Durant trade. I think that McDaniels showed in the playoffs, especially, but even, in several instances during the season when he was filling in as in a more featured role when players were out with injury, that he's like a legit building block for this team going forward. But if the Wolves could get him for something palatable, yes, I would do it, because I would be concerned about his injuries, certainly. But what we saw in the Western Conference Finals was that Anthony Edwards absolutely needed help from a shot creator perspective. And Kevin Durant creates his own shot as well as anybody in the league still to this day. He averaged 26.5 points a game last year. When he is healthy, he is incredibly efficient. He is an unbelievable offensive weapon, and he's actually not bad defensively either. So, yes, I would entertain it quite a bit if I were the Wolves. And, if I didn't have to give up too much, I would absolutely do the deal and see what Anthony Edwards did with his childhood hero sitting next to him.
So Anthony Edwards is untouchable. Jaden McDaniels, nobody wants to see him go.
Pretty close to untouchable at this point.
Pretty close, Jim. Yeah. How about Gobert?
I think that Gobert is not untouchable, but I do think that the likelihood of him going anywhere is very relatively small because number one, the Wolves do value him. He is still an incredibly impactful defensive player. He brings winning to this team at a measurable level. And so despite the significant offensive issues that he has, and I think that actually they got a little bit more noticeable in the playoffs. I still think that the Wolves have reason to keep Rudy Gobert. The other issue that presents in terms of looking at moving him is he is, still, he's getting older. He'll be 32, I believe, next season, in year 12. And you do have concerns about him tailing off as a big man and aging poorly. He takes great care of himself, but this season was not as good as last season, and it was noticeable how different it was. And so I think that the Wolves would have a hard time finding another team that will take on Rudy's contract and kind of have to go through all of the issues that it takes to incorporate him into a new team. And so, what we've seen and heard is like takes almost, at least a half a year, but probably more, a full year for teammates to get used to playing with him. So if you're making this for a win now move from another team, you might not be winning right away just because of how unconventional Rudy is. And so, I don't think it's impossible that he's traded. But I guess I would be very surprised if he is moved at the end of the day, just with all of that to kind of consider.
I was talking to Gobert. I was doing a piece on Tim Connelly in the playoffs, and I asked him, what's it like to play for Connelly? How does he treat you? And he said, "Oh, he's a very nice person." And I'm not going to try to do the accent. I can't do the accent, but he's a very nice person. He's very empathetic. He said all these nice things about how Tim Connelly treats him and other players and employees. And he said he also tells you, "I will trade your ass tomorrow." Yeah.
I think like that is something that is rare in this day and age. Is that Tim Connelly is very upfront with these guys, and he treats them in a way that is incredibly respectful, that gives them agency and makes them feel valued, but he is also not going to lie to their faces. So, has he told Rudy Gobert that? Probably not. But I do think that if Rudy were to go to him this summer and say, "What is my future here?" I do think that Tim would be upfront and say, "Hey, Rudy, we love you here. You've done a lot of great work for us. We've won a lot of games in part because of you. But if the opportunity comes along that we think makes us better and gets us a little bit closer to championship level, then we absolutely have to consider it." And I do think Rudy respects that. I don't think he likes being hoodwinked or having sugar-coated messages to him. He wants the real, and Tim gives him that.
Let's get to, you mentioned point guard. I'm intrigued by the possibilities of the point guard position this offseason and next season. First, though, tell us more about True Vision Institute.
True Vision Institute in Bloomington. If you're watching this on YouTube right now, you can see I have no glasses. Here's a little kind of day in the life story about how life is different after LASIK surgery at True Vision. Just yesterday, I was in the shower and my phone rang, and it was across the bathroom on the sink. And I was waiting for an important call from work related, and so I had to check and see if that was it. So I stuck my head out from behind the shower curtain, and I could see all the way across the room and see who it was. And I saw that it was someone else, and I could let that go straight to voicemail. I didn't have to jump out of the shower all wet and cold and answer the phone. But could not have done that before having LASIK surgery, because I would have been in the shower, my glasses would have been off, and I'd been blind as a bat. And just little things like that just add up over the course of a day, a week, a month, and it makes your life so much easier. So if you go to chewvision.com, set up your consultation, you will go in and they are the most knowledgeable, the warmest, most welcoming staff that you could ever ask for. And when you make your decision on a vision correction, Dr. Chew is just top notch in terms of the care that he gives you, in terms of how he makes you feel and puts you at ease. And he just takes care of everything. And once you get through it, life is so much easier on the other side in ways big and small. So go to chewvision.com, Chew Vision in Bloomington, and you will be wondering why you didn't do it 10 years earlier as soon as it's done.
Tell us now about Head Flyer Brewing.
Head Flyer Brewing in Northeast Minneapolis. We've gotten through the Timberwolves portion of the season, but they still have NBA playoff games, NHL playoff games on. They have Twins games on. If you want to just go in, hang out with your friends, your family, bring your dog, bring your kids. They have board games there for you. It's a very friendly and welcoming environment to come into. But the best of all is it's just got the best beer you're going to find. Any kind of flavor that you're looking for, they have you taken care of at Head Flyer Brewing. You check out the Crunch Time collaboration with myself. My other favorite is the Wicked Jump Shot. But they have just all sorts of different stuff. They have THC seltzers. They have anything you could ask for from an adult beverage standpoint. It's at Head Flyer Brewing. The bartenders are super fun to hang out with, and Dan and Patrick and everyone there. And so go into Head Flyer Brewing in Northeast Minneapolis. You enjoy hopefully a nice summer day. It's raining today, but sit out on their patio, have a good beer. They have pizza truck right in the driveway. And so they have everything you need at Head Flyer Brewing in Northeast Minneapolis.
By the way, Don Mitchell's show this week, we had on Travis Singleton. Might know him as Sneaker Reporter on social media.
Great guy.
And he's working with Head Flyer Brewing too. Great connection for us to have. All right, we're going to thank our final sponsor. We save them to the last because we usually tie in a Twitter question. Shepherd Goods and Lamb Chops clothing line.
sglambchops.com is the website. Go there and put in the promo code JONK20. It'll give you 20% off all of their great streetwear, casual wear that they have: hoodies, sweatpants, shirts, pants, sweaters, hats, shorts, like whatever you want. They have it at Lamb Chops. And you've seen Jordan and Craig sitting courtside at Timberwolves and Lynx games, another community focused and oriented business that we love here at Talk North. And they have been active participants in this show for quite a while now. We have a giveaway that at the end of the show, we will answer a Twitter question, and they will send out a giveaway for the question that's chosen. But these are just great people that make super high quality, super comfortable, and very stylish clothes to wear. You can wear them at home, lounging around, watching games. You can wear them out in the North Loop on a Friday night and fit right in. sglambchops.com with the promo code JONK20 for 20% off anything you can get there.
So one thing Chris Finch mentioned in his exit interview, he just kind of threw in there something about getting another ball handler. Then it sounds like, the impression you have is that the Wolves would be interested in trying and looking at the point guard position. So they have Connelly. I think we all expect a reduced role. They have Dillingham, massive amount of talent, he's very young. Where do you think they end up with the point guard position going into next year?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting for them to look at because there's not a ton of obvious answers out there. I mean, we can talk about Tyus Jones, but the possibilities of getting him at the salary that he will want, I think will be difficult. But I think that they will absolutely look at all of their options and see if there is another veteran that is available that can come in and run the offense and not turn the ball over and hit open shots. Mike Conley had unbelievable moments this last year, but there were certainly other moments where you could tell that he was 37 years old. I think that the lack of scoring from him in the playoffs was a detriment. And it wasn't necessarily that he couldn't shoot. It was that he was not aggressive enough in looking for his own shot, trying to get others involved. But there's got to be a bigger threat sometimes. And whether that's Connelly coming back a little healthier next year, whether that is, I still think that Dillingham has a real shot to develop into that kind of a player, but he barely played at all as a rookie. He's playing a very demanding position. It is reasonable to assume that year two, you might see an uptick in minutes with the Wolves, but is he going to be ready to be a starting level point guard on a team that wants to contend? That's going to be a difficult thing to ask. So I absolutely believe that in addition to considering Kevin Durant, they will also look to see if there's anyone out there in the trade market from a lead guard, ball handler standpoint that can come in and help solidify that position. Because whenever they took Mike Conley out, especially in the Oklahoma City series, that was not Dante DiVincenzo and Nickeil Alexander-Walker's game to be the main primary facilitator. And so I think it's the biggest hole on the roster right now, unless Dillingham really blossoms in year two and is just ready out of the gates. So I think that they have to have some contingency plans in place, and we'll look at the possibilities of adding someone who can break a team down off the dribble and run an offense in an efficient manner.
Next week, we plan to have a guest on, Chris Hine from the Star Tribune, my colleague. He's written a book on Anthony Edwards. He put a massive amount of work into it, really connected with Edwards' people. It'll be fun talking to him about that, and we'll also get his thoughts on the Timberwolves offseason. Let's go to our Twitter question right now.
Yeah, we're going to go to Noah. It's at, I think, Nabra063. He's asked, any word about a Wolves rebrand? We are long overdue for a change. There was the Orlando Magic kind of unveiled their rebrand, and so that gets Wolves fans really talking about it. And I agree with Wolves fans that they desperately need something different from a jersey standpoint, to look more distinctive, to look to fit a team that is much more competitive with a star like Anthony Edwards that is so marketable. And so I can't say when the rebrand is happening. But I can say that it is absolutely on the minds of Mark Lori and Alex Rodriguez as they get ready to take over as full-time owners of this franchise, that they understand that the jerseys have to be addressed sooner than later. Does that mean that it can happen before next season? It's possible. I don't know exactly how much work they've put into it already behind the scenes, but I would imagine that sometime in the next couple of years, this year or next year, you will see a Wolves rebrand, because the jerseys just don't work. And so they need something a little more lively, and that will be a way for Mark Lori and Alex Rodriguez to kind of put a little stamp on things early, that, here's a departure from the old to the new, and we will see that happening.
All righty. Let's just get into the finals really briefly. Oklahoma City against Indiana. Oklahoma City was great all year. Indiana, you could see times this year, and especially down the stretch, that they were just going to be a monster to deal with. I'm going to take Oklahoma City just because I think they can control things. They get back on defense well. I think they are the rare team that could frustrate Indiana. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so too, Jim. I think they're the best team. They've been the best team all year. I actually probably underestimated them a little bit when I picked the Wolves to win in 7. Clearly, in that conference finals, they look like a team that's just really ready for this moment. They can beat you in several different ways. I do expect Indiana to put up more resistance than the Wolves did. I think that they will, with their offensive kind of pace that they play with their ability to hit threes, and with their defensive tenacity, I think it's going to be a competitive series. I don't think it's going to be Thunder in 4 or 5, but I think right now I'll take Thunder in 6, because I just think they're the much better team. But I am looking forward to it, because I think with Rick Carlisle and with kind of the way that the Pacers play, they can do a few things to throw the Thunder off.
Yeah, I agree with everything you just said. And one topic we'll get into this summer when we have less news to get to, was Oklahoma City just 1 year ahead of the Wolves in terms of development? That would be an interesting philosophical question to get into. Please check out Jon on the Viking Update Show. We have lots of Viking content coming at you now. We have Jon's colleague Alec Lewis doing his own show on our network. We have Jeff Diamond, the former Viking general manager, who I saw at Randy Shaver's golf tournament yesterday. He's doing his own show with great expertise on the salary cap, how things actually work. So check out all the Viking content, all the hockey content. I really highly recommend listening to Roy Smalley, Lavelle Eniel, myself on the Chin Music Show. That's a fun Twins show, and the Twins are now actually good enough to talk about. So thank you for listening to TalkNorth.com. Thanks to Jon for all his work, and we'll see you next week.